Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Julie Bartkus. She is a very interesting person because you have been in a work situation, haven't you, where you've gone, oh, wow, am I going to just ride this out? Can I ride it out? What will my life be like? Because maybe manager changed, maybe a team changed, and there's a whole different set of circumstances that you're now dealing with and having to navigate. And this is what Julie does, is she transforms teams. So Julie, before we get started on what you do, tell us, how did you get into this? Why your passion for this? And then I want to talk about some of the things you've developed.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And what an important topic about leaving your legacy or building your legacy. To really start with that in mind as you progress through your career is so critically important. And, where it began for me, I had this fascination for teams and for managers when I was working in various positions. I was in corporate for 8 years. I was in retail. I had numerous positions in the childcare industry. And I always made it my passion, or it was always my passion, to study different managers and to study what they were doing, where the team was like together and we were united and we were constructive. And then other teams I worked with where it was destructive, there was gossip, there was negativity, there was blaming and complaining, and there were people who didn't want to come into work. So I thought it was really interesting, especially as I stepped up into a leadership role. And I've got a very early experience, I remember, in my retail career. But I remember thinking to myself is, what is it that those good managers are doing? So I made it my study and my passion just to really be looking and analyzing like, I'm a part of this team. I like being a part of this team. What are we doing right? And what could we be doing better? So that's really where it began for me. But in retail, I had the opportunity to step into a position of leadership, and they were noticing me, and it was a clothing store called D.R.I.V.E, and it was at the time when everything matched. I don't know if you remember that, but we had matching shirts, matching pants, matching socks. Everything was like the same color. And I really loved moving the clothing and the accessories. And my manager says, gosh, you're so good at this. How would you like to do more of what you love, but through other people? And I think it was a trick question because I was like, oh, okay, there was a little bit of a raise involved with it. I thought, okay, this will be fun. And then I remember accepting the position, and it was like, there was a pat on my back. It was good luck. And it was like, now you're going to have the opportunity to eat lunch here and to do this and to do that. But there wasn't really any training on how to be effective as a leader. So I remember one of my first days in the job, I had an employee and her name was Shannon, and she came in, she punched the clock, and then she looked over at me and said, Julie, I'm hungry. I think I want to go get something to eat. I'm like, what am I supposed to say here? So I thought about it for like a few seconds. I said, well, maybe if you're hungry and you want to go get something to eat after you punch in, you ought to think about working at one of those places, because you could then punch in and eat. But the next day I was greeted by my regional manager, and she was like, wow, I heard the conversation you had with Shannon. And I was like, And I thought about that for a long time. I'm like, did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? I don't know. What was I supposed to do? And now looking back after being in the study, the fascination of teams for over 20 years, I know what I should have done differently, but looking back at it, or in that moment, it was like, well, what am I supposed to do? She's supposed to come in. She's supposed to do her job. We're paying her. She's supposed to leave. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just those hardcore facts. It's really about your interpersonal skills, your emotional intelligence, and how you manage yourself and are able to distance yourself emotionally from destructive things that employees might be doing so that you could still manage them in a constructive way.
That is tough. And I don't think there's a single one of us who have not had the experience of going, wow, I really blew that one, right?
Yeah.
And
Or,
from that,
wow, what the heck are they thinking?
right? And from that,
Sometimes you
you
don't even look
learn.
back at yourself.
Yeah. So tell me, you have this drive method that you use. You talk about a lot of things with team development, moving negative to positive, coaching individuals in order to get a team to work together. And
Yes.
you use the dream method for that. So tell us more about that, because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, the drive method was something that I developed based upon my work with my clients. And it seemed that there were always these things that I was repeating. So each letter in the drive method stands for a different step that you would take to really transform your team. So the first letter in the drive method, the D, stands for the word desire. And a lot of times in our organizations, we're not really getting clear on what it is that we desire in terms of, well, what does our team look like? So we really want to get clear on what is this team that we're bringing together or that we're in charge of leading going to be like. So we have to purposely decide that ahead of time so that we can really drive them to that destination. Because if we're just getting in the car, so to speak, and we're like, well, I don't know where we're ending up. We've got all these people together. Hopefully we get somewhere. It's going to be a very fuzzy picture. So you have to get really clear on what you desire and who you desire to be a part of your team. And that's really important.
Who you desire to be on your team. I think that's where so often we go wrong, because we hire for right now, today's urgent crisis, right?
Yes.
So we don't always think about down the road, a year from now, 2 years from now, will this person be able to grow into where the company is headed?
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about, do I have the right person?
Well, I have my students, my clients really go through an exercise where they write down all the characteristics and behaviors that they want their dreamy team member to possess. And we use that list as the protocol, as the benchmark for who we bring on board. And the more their work deepens with me, the tougher we are with making sure that we don't hire anybody but the person who has all of those characteristics and qualities. Because especially right now in this day and age, and if you're responsible for hiring, you know, it's really easy right now to settle to, oh, they don't have that, but they want to work. At least they want to work. At least they want to come to work. And we really justify them not having those characteristics or qualities for what we're willing to settle for. So we have to keep increasing our mindset in terms of what we want so that we're continuously attracting that. And I really believe that we have the power and the ability to attract people and situations to us. But whatever picture we're defining inside of our heads, that's what we're going to be moving closer and closer and closer to us.
Got it.
Yeah.
Whatever we have in our heads is what we move closer to us. That's fascinating. And it's so true.
It really is. And it plays out in many different scenarios. You could even think about an old high school friend that you've been thinking about. Or for me, like even an automobile. I remember in 2012, I was getting ready to buy a new car. And the salesman talked me into test driving and taking home the Chevy Malibu. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a pretty cool car. It's 2012. The car is a 2013. I don't see Malibus out there anywhere. And then I come back and he's like, so are you going to get the car? I'm like, yeah, okay, decision made. I already moved in, right? The new car smell, took it home for a week. But I signed on the dotted line. And the next thing I know, I started seeing Chevy Malibus everywhere. Yeah. I mean, it even got so bad where I started parking between two Malibus in the airport. I'm like, you know, these cars are like everywhere. I thought I had a unique car. Not to say I don't love it any less. I do. It's a fantastic vehicle. But it's like when you start thinking about it and you're in it and you're driving it and you're experiencing it, you're going to start seeing more of that all around you. And the same thing is true with the staff that you desire. And I know some leaders aren't responsible for hiring the staff, or there's little say they have in that process, but still get clear on who you want, because then you could always make your case like, oh, this is really what we're looking for. This is the objectives I visualize this person achieving. This is how I feel in their energy. And all that's going to make such a difference in your ability to attract those people and have an amazing staff.
That is so true, isn't it?
Mm.
Okay, so we've got D, desire. What is R?
Well, so R is right there in alignment with D, and that's responsibility.
Oh, baby.
And this one could be a tough pill to swallow because we really have to look in the mirror and take full responsibility for everything that we see transpiring with our staff. So chances are we may have hired them, or we had a say-so in hiring them. We coached them, we didn't coach them. We fired them, we didn't fire them. So we really have to take a look at our team as it is right now and say, you know what? I created this. Now, if this isn't what I want, and I've identified what I want through desire, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to create something different. So then we start with a new mental picture of what we really want to create. And then we start making the transformation happen with our team. So it doesn't mean that we fire everybody and we start brand new, but it does mean that we take a look at who we have in place and think about, are they a dream team member, or is there transformation that needs to happen? And how do I have that direct and positive communication with them so we can transform their performance into a dream team member?
Wow. Okay. So that responsibility is also taking the willingness to be honest with yourself, isn't it?
Yes. Such an important point. Yes. It's really about being honest. And the cool thing that I like about the work that I do and about the R and the D.R.I.V.E method is that it doesn't render you powerless. It doesn't render you a victim. It's really saying, hey, you know what? You are fully empowered to create the reality that you want, including the people that you attract and the people who are around you energetically to fulfill your vision.
Wow. So you can energetically fulfill your vision. That's great.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I think that's one of the things that people fear with teams is that they're going to lose their energy, not be energized because of the team, how it's constructed, right?
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. There's so much fear in our team management, in attracting staff. And I always encourage leaders to think about the fear that they're feeling, because that fear is really detracting you. It's causing you to be derailed from what you really want, from what you really deserve in your leadership career, which is to have people who are on board and excited. And imagine coming into work every day feeling like, woo, I get to work with these people. But instead, a lot of times we're like, oh, crap, another day. What's going to unfold? What situation is going to transpire? How am I going to feel tonight? So we're already projecting lack. We're projecting fear. We're projecting the worst case scenario, where if we energetically shift all that through taking responsibility and the IVE in the D.R.I.V.E method, then it's going to be a whole different picture and, man, a whole different powerful legacy that we leave.
So, okay, now you've introduced it. What is I?
So I is for imagination. And Napoleon Hill wrote a book many years ago called Think and Grow Rich. And he revealed some secrets in that book about how people during the times of the Depression became millionaires. And some people had businesses that were collapsing and crumbling, while other people were like, woo, I have $1 million business now during this time. And he said that the two biggest keywords, one was desire, which was my D, which I'm a huge fan of. And then the other word is imagination. And those are two big secrets that he talks about in that work. Or in that book. But he said that the people who can create their reality in their imagination first are the ones who are more likely to be successful with that reality that they want to bring to life. So we create two realities, right? We create one inside of our minds first, and we create our second reality with what transpires in front of us. So now, how amazing is it to bridge the gap and have the reality that we create with our mind come into fruition in our reality? So what you want to do is engage your imagination. Take yourself back to that playful place where you're imagining the best scenarios happening Sunday evening, instead of getting filled with anxiety and fear about what's going to unfold. You start imagining the difference that you're going to be making in so many lives. And it's not just the lives of the staff who are on board with you, but it's the lives of the people who are being served by everybody. And I remember being in corporate America. I was there for 8 years, and I worked my way up from a clerk to a financial manager by the time I left. And I remember being there at times, especially at the end of the year until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, balancing budgets to the exact penny. And there was a breakthrough time in that career where I thought to myself, well, why am I doing this? What difference does it make? And this is so unfulfilling, moving these pennies into these columns. And then I thought about it. I said, Julie, you've really got to get in touch with the why of what you're doing. So I got out a white flip chart. I look over here because I'm got a big whiteboard up. So I always have big white sheets of paper or a whiteboard around me so I can draw things out. But I got out a big white sheet of paper and I started asking myself questions. And it's my why, what, why formula. And I said, why do you do what you do? And I started thinking, well, I'm a financial manager. I work for a telecommunications company. And I eventually scaled my answer back to, well, listen, you're in a communication company, telephone calls get connected because you do what you do, because there's budgets, because there's money. So I deepened it a little bit. I said, all right, Julie, here's what your real purpose is that you're enabling the 911 calls, the emergency calls to be connected. And because those calls can be connected, lives are being saved. So from that moment on, that's what I focused on, the why of what I'm doing. And I started really creating that and cultivating that in my imagination and playing with it to where it was ooh, there was some genuine excitement happening about saving lives by balancing these budgets. So no longer was it about moving a penny from one column to another. It was about those calls are being connected, lives are being saved. And man, that's what you're about, making a difference. And I hung on.
That's powerful. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I always think back to that moment because it was a time where I was checking out and I was like, oh, do I want to stay here? Do I want to do this? And I'm like, this is how you recultivate your own vision. And regardless of where you're at in your leadership role, you've got to have a strong, compelling vision that moves you, that excites you, that you're willing to wake up a little early for or stay up late, if you're like me, but that you're willing just to move forward with, and it excites you. And that's really important to have.
Wow.
Because without it, everything seems hard. It really does.
It does, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's that passion, the why that gives you the reason to wake up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So V, what is V?
Oh, V. Okay. My favorite word. I've mentioned it a couple times, but V is for vision. You've got to lead by a vision. You've got to cultivate a vision. You've got to have a strong, compelling vision in terms of why you do what you do. And a lot of organizations make mistakes with their vision. They have a big corporate retreat or whatever it is, the process that they go through, and they get their vision statement. And then I come on site and everybody can recite the vision in unison. But nobody feels the vision. The vision's not alive. It's thumbtacked to a wall or it's filed in a cabinet. You want to think about that vision as a living, growing human being. Give your vision a name even. But you wouldn't stick that human being in a file cabinet and said, all right, see you in 10 years when I need to remember what you are. You would really be feeding that vision. You'd be giving it sunlight and some food and some nourishment. And the same thing is true with our vision. So if you're a leader and there is a vision or there's a subvision that you've cultivated, think about how you get your people to feel alive with it. That's the most important thing.
How do you do that, Julie? How do you get a vision to come to life inside people's hearts and minds?
How much time do we have?
Well,
yeah. Well, what I found, a simple answer to that is emotional connection. Okay. People get bought into what they feel emotionally. So how do we connect with the vision emotionally? How do we get our people to connect? To me, the backbone of the vision is always a story. And it could be even a fictitious story. There's, barbecue sauce company where it's like, we're just made up a story about grandma's barbecue sauce, right? So it's grandma's thing. but you get attached to the story. So if you're like a fan of KFC, or used to be many years ago, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know that there's a man behind that vision, and that was Colonel Sanders, who was amazing. And he went around from gas station to gas station at the age of 65, trying to sell I think it was his mother's, fried chicken recipe. And it was at 65 that he started making his money and started bringing his vision to life. The story connects. And a lot of times we don't feel our story is worth telling or worth sharing. But if you are not connected to a story that supports the vision in terms of what you're working on, none of your people are going to be connected either. So it's really critically important to connect yourself. So as the top leader, whoever's tuning into this, think, am I emotionally connected to the vision? And if the answer is no, pull the vision out, see if you need to make a sub-vision, and then think of a story about why that vision is so important to you. Maybe it's something that grandma did, or something that your mother did, or maybe it's just your father, whatever it might be. But make it heartfelt. And I guarantee you, when you come up with that story and then you share it with your team, they are going to connect with it too. Especially if you've got the right team members in place, the ones who can be transformed, their hearts are going to be touched. And I've seen and have worked with teams where they transformed on a dime. And the interesting thing about teams to remember is that what you want as a leader for your team is the same thing they want. You just don't know how to get them there, and they don't know how to get there either. So what we have to do is find that way for us to come together and say, yeah, this is what we both want. This is what we want to work towards. Let's put our plan in place so that we can march on together in unity and achieve this vision, bring it to life.
Bring it to life. E. What do we do with E?
Woo. All right. So E, we talked about this a little bit prior to us starting the recording, but it's about energy. It's about how are you feeling? And it's really about really feeling that way energetically every day. And whether you're looking to attract staff, looking to attract or transform your team, it's always the energy behind the intent that's going to get you results, the energy behind the intent. So if our energy, let's say we put out a help wanted ad, and our energy behind the intent is fear and desperation. Oh my gosh, somebody just quit. We need to find somebody. Let's get an ad out there. Oh, we had one 5 years ago. Let's blow the dust off that baby. Let's get it out there and let's attract somebody. That's what most leaders will do, especially hiring managers. Like, oh, we got the ad. The pictures are great. The layout is great, but there's no emotional connection in that ad. There's no story in that ad. So it doesn't work. It falls flat. So we really want to pay attention to the energy. And we go through a lot of energy shifting exercises with my clients so that we get them to that place where it's like, woo, I just wrote that ad. Oh, and we had a client who went from hearing crickets after he put an ad out there to getting 40 applicants in 2 days.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Right. But it's not only true just for attracting staff, it's also true for transforming your team. So for instance, if your energy behind your intent when you're confronting an employee is, oh, here comes Sally again. I don't really like Sally. I wish somebody else would deal with Sally. You're not going to be as effective in your communication with her. So it's about shifting her energies or shifting your energy saying, you know what? Sally was hired because of this, 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 and this, and you review those reasons why she was hired in the first place. And then when you see Sally, you say, Sally, you know what? I was just reviewing why we hired you. And I want to reiterate this, this, and this, and this, and this. So these are the things that, man, I can't wait to see more of from you. So you reiterate the energy, you reiterate the expectation, but you come from a place of sincere, positive energy and a vision for each person who you're managing. And I tell you what, that is going to make such a difference, not only in their life, but in also how you feel. Because imagine authentically and genuinely feeling excited for what your people are going to be accomplishing today, for the problems or the challenges that you're going to help people overcome in a very constructive way.
You know, I think that to me is the art of management.
Yes.
Right. And I think that is something people are hungry for. And we have lost it in terms of our training, of our managers or leaders as they move in the company.
Yes.
Too easy to dismiss somebody, leave a hole, hire quickly, and then you kind of get back in the same vicious cycle.
Oh, yeah. It's like a repeating pattern. And there's some organizations that call me and they're like, we've gotten really good at bringing people in. So they could 5 new people, 5 new people, 5 new people. But guess what's happening at the same time? 3 are turning over, 3 more turnover. So it's kind of like we're always in this churn of bringing new people in and we're losing. But wouldn't it be magical to bring the right people in and to not just retain them, engage them? Engage them with the vision so that if they do have to leave, they write a teary, sappy goodbye letter. I can't believe I have to go. But they write that kind of letter because they are just so involved mentally with the vision. And we have to remember that people check out or emotionally before they check out physically. So some people stay with us for 30 years and they checked out, 28 and a half years ago, but they're just sticking it, sticking with it, and sticking with it. And then we're like, why do our people act like robots? It's like they're just coming in to get a paycheck. They're not engaged. They're not connected.
Tell me, you talk a little bit about negative attitudes, gossip. Gossip is huge.
Yes.
I talked with a C-suite executive who finally left because she was so tired of the biting at her heels and the gossip.
Yes.
And so tell me, what do you do with that?
Well, you have to understand that gossip is a symptom. So there are these things that I've identified, and I used to go into organizations and interview every single level of employee. From the cook to the bus driver to, whoever it was at the lowest level, all the way up to the owners, asking them what motivates you in the workplace and what demotivates you. So when it comes to gossip, first of all, it's really important to understand it's a symptom. It's a clue that there's other things going on in your workplace. Now, what are those other things? Most likely, we don't hire people who say, yeah, I love to come into work and I love to stir the pot and I love to gossip. We don't hire those people. But if we already have a gossipy environment, then it's like, oh, they would rather fit in most of the time than to break out of the norm and not be a part of the gossip. And a lot of times people even feel a sense of acceptance when they're accepted into the gossip circle. So you have to first recognize gossip as a symptom and then ask yourself an important question, not how do we change that among our staff? That's not the good question to ask. But the right question to ask is, what as leaders do we need to do more of or differently so we get a different result in our staff? So when we look at a lot of leadership behaviors that transpire, it's like one little thing can lead to a whole chain reaction of destructive events. And this is what I call staff demotivators. And it's where there's something that's modeled at the very top of the organization downward that causes a chain reaction of destructive events to unfold. So if you could swallow that pill, you'll be well on your way to eliminating the gossip. Once you recognize that it's a symptom, it's not the cause. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, hey, what's the cause of gossip? And there's lots of different things that we can look at, like maybe lack of follow through from a leader. That can lead to gossip. Maybe double standards between what you say and what you do, like, oh, no personal chit chat at work, but then you have a tough day, you go into your office, close the door, and everybody knows not to talk to you for a while. So there's a whole list of these things that we can go through. But when I talk to a leader, we quickly get to that place of the root cause. So you know what's causing the destructive behaviors that you're experiencing. But a lot of leaders, that takes a lot of digging a little deep and being willing, like I said, to swallow that pill. And it can be a tough one. But a lot of times in organizations, we're trying to fix staff, fix them, they're broken, fix them, they're broken. Let me know when they're fixed. Or we're trying to put Band-Aids over things. We have gossip, so we put a Band-Aid over it. Okay, we're going to do a team building activity. That's going to get everybody communicating. That's going to get everybody liking each other. So that's one Band-Aid. And then, okay, that lasted a week. Now we're going to put another Band-Aid over it. And before we know it, we've got like this wound with Band-Aids over it. And I don't know about you, but have you ever had a Band-Aid on for too long?
Well, they start to fall off.
Yeah, yeah. But if you have it on, and maybe it's one of those watertight band-aids, and I've done this, it's like you left it on a little too long, you pull that sucker off, you're left with just kind of like a bloody, pussy mess. And that's what's happening in our organizations is finally we get to the point where it's like, all right, you know what? I just can't put band-aids on things anymore. So we tear the band-aid off. It's like, whoa, that looks a little bit messy. And it can be. But also transformation can happen very quick when you implement the right strategy.
That is so true, Julie. Our time has gone so fast. It's unbelievable. Isn't it unbelievable? What have we left out that people should know about?
Oh my goodness. What have I left out? I think the D.R.I.V.E method will serve you very well. And that in this journey of leadership, in this journey of managing teams, you have to remember that although the saying is that there's no I in team, I have a drawing I should share with you that shows that like in between the letters of TEAM, there is an I that can appear. And I don't want you to forget about the I because you matter, you're important, and your authentic and genuine happiness is going to be contagious to everyone who you come around. So we want to start with you, making sure that you are happy and that you're leading from this incredibly happy place within yourself. And then the result that you get is going to be totally mind-blowing.
Wow. And the result you get is mind-blowing. And I think I really love the simplicity of your D.R.I.V.E method, Julie.
Thank you.
I think we need to make management simple. Because people have so many pressures. There's so many things a manager has to do, they're accountable for. And the human resources you have that you take care of every day can be a drain or they can be an energizer. But we don't teach people how to turn it into an energy resource.
Yes, yes. And then that's such an important point because we all have the power within us to perceive situations as we want to, right? And when I was in corporate, there was a lot of right sizing, downsizing, outsourcing, execution style firings. But if you could stay in the mindset that you were going to serve the vision, you were going to be happy, you're going to be productive, you were the one who went far in your journey. And I think everybody listening to this will go far in their journeys if they keep in mind that part of this, and a huge part of this, actually a huge percentage, is your mindset. And what are you willing to, up-level your thoughts to? How high will you increase them in terms of what's possible? And that's going to set the bar for how high and how far you go.
I love that. What will you up-level your thoughts to?
Yeah.
That's a great, great comment, Julie.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast. For those of you who are listening, we will have information about Julie in the show notes, and we welcome you to go ahead and contact her. What a great resource she is. And, people who can take complex concepts and simplify them so you can actually use them, I think are a gift. So be sure to check out Julie and see what it is that she might be able to do for your organization. And again, Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lois. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you.
You are welcome. And for those of you who are listening, please remember to visit us at our website as well at www.buildtomorrow.com. Thanks for being with us.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.